The Threefold Study Strategy by Venerable Rungruang Papassaro, Dr. Rungruang Limchoopatipa. The enlightenment of the Buddha revealed the great knowledge on the mind and its functions. He carefully divided the problems into 3 parts based on their complexities as follows. 1. The finest level of the description of the operation system of the mind, that is, the process of dependent origination that explains how the mind functions and drives the way of life of living in the world. 2. The middle level of the description of the world of thoughts of the 5 lower fetters, which is the common routines of daily life. 3. The general description of the interaction between an individual and the world under the law of karma. This part explained that whatsoever we do, we are directed by the mind, especially the emotional mind that instructs us to take actions in responding to the world. It is important to recognize that these 3 parts of complexities are entwined into a unique system. Here is the thing. When studying the mind, we cannot isolate each part from the others because each of them is codependent on the others. Therefore, we have to interconnect all of the related components in the 3 levels together into a seamless integration as a whole unique system. That is, when we want to understand what and why a person makes any problem, we have to investigate it into his or her thinking. In addition, if we want to analyze the root cause of the problem, then we have to investigate deeply into the basic operating system of the mind. In this analogy, the mind can be compared to the classifications of the physical world into 3 levels. The finest level of the atomic subparticle level, the middle molecular level, and the general physics level. That is, any physical phenomenon can be explained by physics law, then connecting into the chemistry structure and actions at the molecular level, and if necessary, penetrating into the subparticles and their electromagnetic field of the whole system. And this is the reason why the Buddha called this systematic strategy to resolve the problem as a whole system to gain insight, vision, knowledge on the mind, and wisdom to make an end of suffering in life. Given that these defilements manifest on 3 distinct levels, based on their nature and characteristics, the Buddha introduced a systematic threefold study strategy to address the problem as a whole system in each type of complexity as follows.
A farmer, when growing rice, has to follow 3 steps. That is, preparing the soil ground first, then putting water and wheatgrass in, and when the ear of paddy comes out, then taking the water out from the rice field before harvesting. The farmer has to follow these practices step by step. So too in Buddhism, we have to follow the Buddhist threefold study strategy as follows. The study on morality, to block the emotions of rough defilements. The study on the mind, to resolve the unwholesome thoughts of middle defilements. And the study on the wisdom, to serve the purpose of the destruction of the dysfunction of mind processing of the finest defilements.
The holistic view of the dynamic escalation of defilements through dependent origination, alongside a threefold study to resolve the problem in 3 levels of defilement aggravations. The threefold study strategy is elegantly simple yet profoundly effective. The basis of the process of dependent origination, the minor defilements, can gradually compound a big problem. At the beginning, they manifest as unwholesome thoughts and eventually escalate into intense negative emotions. Thus, to fully resolve these issues, we must temper these emotions first, controlling and moderating them through moral discipline, to prevent them from ultimately giving rise to destructive actions. Morality study is essential for restraining the intense emotions, greed, hatred, and delusion that characterize the rough defilements. Following this, we turn our attention to the mind study by exploring its nature and functioning, with a particular focus on the realm of thought. Then, through cultivating mindfulness, bring in the knowledge to abandon unwholesome thought patterns associated with middle-level defilements. Ultimately, mind study provides a powerful means to dismantle these toxic thought formations. And finally, we can address the root cause of the problem, the taints of the finest defilements within the mind processing. We must engage in insight observation to perceive the mind as it truly is. This deep examination allows us to gain a clear understanding of dependent origination and equips us with the wisdom needed to dismantle the initial dysfunction in our mental processes. In doing so, we eradicate the subtle defilements at the very source, laying the groundwork for lasting transformation within the mind. In the analysis of the 4 noble truths, once we clearly identify the problem and understand its root cause, we can discern the proper path and way to remedy it. The Buddha introduced the threefold study strategy, an approach centered on a detailed examination of the mind to cultivate wisdom, which is then employed to eradicate the source of suffering. It is important to emphasize that the Buddha was not concerned with supernatural powers or deities. His focus was solely on uncovering the fundamental truths of life.